I think The Silent Witness is one of my favourite books by Casey Watson. This is one of her foster care memoirs, and this was originally released quite a while ago now. It was released in 2017. I don't remember when I first read it. I think we're talking about 3 or 4 years ago. And of all of her books, this is the one that I could remember most vividly, to the point where I remembered, as it were, the beginning, middle, and end. And that's because it is so moving. Now, I'm not going to spoil it in this discussion. Maybe towards the end I'll give a spoiler warning and say a few points, maybe not, we'll see. But it's about a young girl called Bella, and Bella is actually taken to Casey's house on Christmas Eve. In fact, I think it's technically Christmas Day by the time she arrives. And this is because her mother is in prison for beating, in fact, her stepfather over the head, and her stepfather is in hospital, unconscious at this point, in potentially a critical condition. And of course, Bella's got nowhere else to go, so she has to go into foster care. And what happens is partly Casey trying to help Bella through this. Bella is quite quiet to begin with, though she does gradually begin to find her voice as she settles in, and she's obviously very worried. She doesn't care about her stepfather at all. She's not worried that he's in hospital. He's clearly, as we learn through her, he's not a nice person. He's a drunk. He's horrible. But she loves her mother very much. And obviously with her mother in prison and her father's status still critical for a lot of it, it's unclear what's going to happen to Bella and also to her mother. And she's so worried that her mother is obviously going to end up in prison for a very long time. And I remember being curious about this because I wasn't sure what to expect from it and kind of what would happen with Bella and what the long-term implications would be. Reading it a second time, I knew what was around the corner, and all I can say is brace yourself, because it's maybe not going to go in the direction that you think. Maybe it will be, maybe you pick up on something that I didn't, but definitely, even though I knew what was coming, I found it to be really thrilling and delightful, and it's very interesting to see, how do I say this without spoiling it, or should I put a spoiler warning in? No, it's interesting to see what the processes are once certain things come to light, and kind of what the outcomes are as well. And I found it to be very fascinating, very gripping and compelling, and I think enough information is withheld for long enough that it kept me hooked. But it's also, once things are revealed, very fascinating to see what happens thereafter, and I continued to enjoy it afterwards. It's very well written, it's engaging, it's moving. Bella is a really likeable character. I think it helps when you're emotionally invested in that character's journey and you want the best for them. I say character, these of course are based on truth, but you never know quite how much is being changed. But The Silent Witness, as I said, is possibly my favourite Casey Watson book. I still have a couple more to reread, but as I said, I remembered this one really vividly, despite the fact it's been 3 or 4 years, maybe more at this point. It definitely stuck with me, and for good reasons. The Silent Witness is 100% worth reading.